Now, I never like being the negative guy in any kind of situation, but I have got to be like 100% honest at the moment. There is zero reason Black Panther should be nominated for Best Picture. And the funny thing is, I actually like the movie. I actually think it's a decent superhero movie, but that's where it ends. Decent. However, today we're going to be looking at why Black Panther is by far the most overrated superhero movie of all time. No question. Starting off with our first reason, Black Panther is not even the best superhero movie of 2018. Hell, it's not the best Marvel movie of 2018. And if you really want to get into it, it's not even the best black superhero movie of 2018. That would easily go to Into the Spider-Verse, and the best Marvel movie of last year would definitely go to Infinity War. The difference between Black Panther in those movies is Infinity War and Into the Spider-Verse, they had real emotions in those movies. They had reasons for you to get behind and be invested in the story. And I think that's what was like one of the big things that was severely lacking in Black Panther. There were multiple times in Infinity War and in Into the Spider-Verse where I'm not even a crier, but I teared up multiple times in both those movies. Infinity War actually made me almost cry for the bad guy. And I'm talking about the Avengers. But there were multiple times in Infinity War where I was feeling a wide range of emotions. I mean, almost tearing up at some points. Cheering. And I hate when audiences cheer in movies. But I was actually cheering at certain points in the movie. Excited, sad, angry. Like, it's like an overwhelming, like, rush of emotions. It's like being attacked by like the emotion Avengers or some shit. Like it was actually an amazing experience. Even Into the Spider-Verse, which had a plot twist that I predicted. I literally looked over to my girlfriend and said, this is what's going to happen. I'm not going to spoil it just in case you haven't seen the movie. And when it happened, I was somehow still shocked because the movie was so great. Like even when it don't ask me how this happened, but when they revealed the Prowler, I was like, yeah, that's who I thought it was. But for some reason, I was like, oh my god. Maybe it was the music they were playing because the Prowler's theme is badass, dude. That's one of the best themes I've like in recent memory, dude. No question about it. But both of those movies are better movies. They're better stories. They have better characters. They make you feel something more emotional. Black Panther, even though I like it has nothing to grasp onto except like, hey, black people. I'm like, yeah, I see those all the time. Like, why should I care about them though? None of these characters are great. Like, none of them have real depth except for maybe Michael B. Jordan. And I like, you need to follow somebody in these movies. And I loved following Miles Morales in Into the Spider-Verse. I related to him. Like, his whole experience was, like, great. You wanted to follow him. He was likable. Same with the Avengers, most of them. You like them. You want to follow them. You know who they are. You know these characters. You've been following them for a decade, literally. And so, you know, you're invested in that story. With Black Panther, he's a little new. We don't really know too much about him outside of when he was in Civil War. And so we need a reason to care about him, his sister, his mom, his dad, his uncle, his nephew, his goddamn rhinos. Like, we need a reason to like these things. So it's really a damn shame that Black Panther is like the third best superhero movie. And some people might argue Aquaman, but you're not going to get that argument out of me. That it was the third best superhero movie of 2018, and somehow it was nominated as Best Picture Award. And the reason why is for my second reason. The Negro Participation Award. These are awards I usually give to these slave movies or these civil rights movies. Even though most of them are good, the only reason they are nominated is because that is exactly what they are. Only more recently are we getting like actual black movies that aren't related to slavery and goddamn civil rights actually being nominated, like Moonlight. And If Beale Street Could Talk, but actually I don't even think If Beale Street Could Talk. How the hell was Beale Street not nominated, but Black Panther is? I'm done! But yeah, this movie is probably the biggest case of Negro Participation Award that I have ever seen in my life. This movie was really only nominated because of the huge black following that it has, and because of all the backlash that they were, or blacklash, I'm so funny, that they would receive if Black Panther wasn't nominated. Like, did you know, as I'm looking down this list of Oscars and stuff, Black Panther is the only movie nominated for Best Picture to not have any actor, actress, or director, even though it's usually only one director, being nominated for any other Oscar. None, not one. And that's really because one of the biggest problems with this movie is that there are no great characters. You never really go past liking any character past oh, they're funny or they're cool. Best character in this film, hands down, is Michael B. Jordan as Eric Killmonger. And maybe most of that's because he's working with Ryan Coogler again, who's actually one of my favorite directors. And he seems like Michael B. Jordan is a staple in Ryan Coogler's films, like Fruitvale Station, Creed, Black Panther. He's got to be in all Ryan Coogler's films. He's actually a really good villain. He's not a great villain, mostly because of his end goal, like his whole plan in the end. It goes from, you know, I want to avenge my father to fuck all whiteys, you know? It's like, how did that happen? I still think if they would have kept Killmonger's motivations just a little bit more grounded, like let's say he's running a strict program of attacking people who are oppressing others, rather than, you know, maybe diplomatically trying to work it out, you know, instead of just, you know, trying to kill all the white people on the fucking planet, you know, just maybe systematically attack certain people who have a history of oppressing black people or something. That, like, that would have made a little bit more sense. But no, he goes full crazy, you know, kill all the Caucasians in the snap of his fingers. Like, I was like, you were gonna be a great villain, but that's where you dropped off to just being a good villain. The reason I love Thanos in the Infinity War is because he, despite the fact that he is going to kill half the universe, and even though technically that's worse than what Killmonger would do, you know, he's not targeting a specific group of people. What he thinks he's doing is what he thinks is best for the universe, and the universe just doesn't understand it yet. He thinks that, you know, this plan that he's not doing this out of anger. He's doing this because this is a well thought out plan that he's been, you know, putting in the works for a long time, and he's finally ready to end it, to put all his hard work, you know, into the effort that he's been putting in. You can see Thanos as the good guy of Infinity War. Like, genuinely, you could see him as the protagonist of Infinity War. You already spend the most time with him, and his logic somewhat kind of makes sense, and that's what's important. A villain has to truly believe what they're doing is right, and not only right, but you have to somewhat feel morally ambiguous, you know, to this person's like goals. You know, yeah, it's a gray area. Movies, I think nowadays, especially superhero movies, and I know people like to say Marvel villains are a problem, DC villains are just as big of a problem, but the biggest problem is that there's just black and white in these movies. There's good and there's evil. And I love that in Infinity War, Thanos is kind of a gray area. You know, you can see where he's coming from. He is so committed, even to the point of killing his favorite daughter, that he is going to get this done because it's for the betterment of the universe. He thinks this is what will save all of us. And you can see where he's coming from in that way. There is a gray area there, because I hate just black and white. I love to explore that little gray area in between, that little middle center where you're leaning on both sides, you know, balanced as all things should be. I love in these films that you have to question, you know, who's the least wrong? You know, you don't have to question who's right. You have to question at this point with movies like this, like, who is the least wrong in this situation? And sometimes you can go with Thanos, sometimes you can go with the Avengers. You can see where everybody's coming from, but that's the most important thing in building a great character. Like, our main character T'Challa is not even that interesting when you get down to it. Don't get me wrong, Chadwick Boseman is actually very good as T'Challa, and even has some great spots in this movie, but most of the time he's just doing his best impression of Plank from Ed, Edd n Eddy. He's just standing around looking mad.
Don't freeze.
I never freeze. I'm just like, damn, can you show some emotion in here? It's really hard to relate and follow a character who looks bored half the time. Half the time, T'Challa looks like he can't remember if he left his stove on in his house. That's one of the biggest reasons that kept this from being a great film, is that you just don't have any characters that you really want to attach to. There's nobody that you say, oh, I want to follow that person over there, besides the fact that, hey, she's kind of funny, I want to follow her. You don't know really who these people are. There's no emotional depth, there's no emotional attachment to any of these people. Probably the closest is to T'Challa and Killmonger, but even then, there isn't much. You should feel for the fact that T'Challa is taking over an entire country just after the recent death of his father. You should relate to Killmonger wanting to get revenge for his dead dad. But you don't. Sometimes you get some decently acted scenes, and other times you get big CGI battles. Oh boy, which leads me into my final reason. The third act. I'm not exaggerating when I say this has to be one of the worst third acts of a superhero movie I have ever seen. I was actually really enjoying this movie. It was a top 10 Marvel movie, maybe like top 6 or 7 Marvel movie for the first 2 acts. And then that third act came down and it was like a Hiroshima bomb, dude. It was gone. Pretty much all the action scenes in this movie were actually kind of good, especially like that casino fight scene. But when we get to the final battle, it is just a clusterfuck of bad CGI. And I know a lot of people like to talk about the awful CGI of that Eric Killmonger T'Challa fight in the little subway or whatever. And the most common comparison I hear about that fight is that it looks like a PS2 cutscene. And I just want to say that I don't agree with that at all. I played some really good looking PS2 video games I guess I was a kid. This looked like some shit out of a GameCube. Like, it was honestly awful. I still, like, even thinking about it now, it's like a cartoon. It was like some shit that you'd see on Nickelodeon. Nothing looked real. There were no textures on anything. Everything was smooth. Even when the masks were fading off their face, even their face looked like they were half to the left and like wasn't connected to the suits that they were in. And don't get me started on the rhinos, boy. Oh my god. Can we start a petition to just keep rhinos out of superhero movies? They seem to always be the worst part of whatever superhero movie that they are in.
I am a man.
I mean, the best parts of that final fight were the dialogues, like the talks that happened at the end of them. The fight was not exciting, it was boring, it was lame, but the talks, especially Okoye and Wakabi at the end of that scene, when she was talking about when he asked her, his own wife, would you kill me in the name of Wakanda? And she's like, fuck yeah! That was a genuine great scene. And they had another great scene that was actually deleted from the movie, which I still can't understand why, because it was probably one of the best scenes in the entire movie. And that was a scene that felt like it was directed by Ryan Coogler, whereas a lot of the rest of the movie felt like it was directed by Marvel Studios. And the other best part of the fight, once again, at the end, is the T'Challa and Killmonger. The final scene that they have between them is by far the most emotional scene in the movie, when he's dying and he just wants to see the sunset of Wakanda. And that was the closest I got to feeling like anything in this movie, because I actually, it actually almost, I won't lie, it actually like kind of hurt a little bit. And when he got into, to the top of the mountain, he ended it with one of the best dying monologues that I've heard in recent memory. It was great. It was genuinely great. And it was like, wow, man, if it wasn't for that awful fucking fight that we just got, that big clusterfuck of CGI, it was like, really, it was like two CGI symbols just clashing against each other constantly. But it was scenes like that that made me think, man, if Ryan Coogler had more say in this movie, I feel like it would have been one of the greatest superhero movies of all time. But once again, Marvel's like, no, you've got to insert CGI in here. You got to insert this big boss fight here. You got to insert this GameCube cutscene at the end of this fight with the worst CGI that we've ever seen. Like, the CGI in this movie would make DC chuckle. And it's a shame that the CGI in the final boss fights and the obligation that it has to end like every other superhero movie really kept this movie from being the amazing movie that I thought it had the chance of being. But enough about the negative stuff. Let's actually talk about stuff that I did like, because like I said, I did enjoy the movie. I know when people think that I'm actually hating on the movie. I'm gonna stuff some things that I do like just real quick before we end the video. I do actually agree with the Oscar nominations it got from production design and costume designs. These are some of the best costume production designs I've seen of probably ever of any superhero movie. I mean, the sets are gorgeous. The African costumes that they have on all of these people, everyone is unique. Every costume is unique. Every person looks different. They look like they're from different tribes. It's honestly a gorgeous movie. Practical thing, like costumes and the production design. Like, the throne room was badass. Like, everybody looks great. All the costume designs are amazing. Everybody's outfits, even the casino, that was a great production, like a great set. It was gorgeous looking. Everything really technically outside of CGI was really great. Like I said, all the costumes were amazing. The sets were fantastic. I actually do like every character in this movie. Even though none of them are good characters, you do not hate them. You like them. They are funny. They're cool. You say like, oh, I want to see more of that person. But even though they're not great characters, but you like them. That's very important. The soundtrack is amazing, but I'd expect nothing less from Kendrick Lamar. Some of the cinematography in this movie is amazing, and that's when I knew this is Ryan Coogler doing this directing, because like that one shot that they had I mean, if you catch it, you catch it. It's not very subtle, but like the one shot of when Killmonger takes over and he goes from the room and the camera spins upside down as if saying like Wakanda's turned upside down from Killmonger taking over. Like that one little camera shot, the rotating camera shot was amazing. Like that was great. The scene in the casino where it was a one-shot take, which was gorgeous. It's one of my favorite Marvel action scenes of all time, and I'm not joking about that. Mostly because it was done in one shot. I'm sure it wasn't done in like exactly one shot, but the fact that it was done like that was amazing, and it was gorgeous. It made me love it, and the music they played in this scene. Speaking of music, the score was great, but the music they played in that scene was awesome. I went back and listened to that one casino fight brawl song multiple times. Killmonger is a decent character, and he's a really good villain. He's definitely a top 5 Marvel villain, no question. Just wish his motivations were a little less, you know, genocidal. And mostly, I respect the cultural impact that Black Panther has. Like, you know, growing up, I did like a lot of black superheroes, mostly because, you know, I could relate. And so I did enjoy Black Panther, even though I wasn't a big fan, because I'm a bigger Spider-Man fan. Obviously. I mean, Cyborg, Static Shock, Black Panther. I really enjoyed these black superheroes growing up. So I'm happy that this generation of kids gets to grow up with a really mainstream, very popular black superhero that's good for people. Even though I wish they got a better movie out of it. Finally, the last thing I liked, those rhinos, man. Those rhinos, perfect.